Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Brushes and Bunnies and I'm here with a video tutorial and I will be showing you guys how to basically draw animal fur. So we do have this really cute rabbit head that I quickly sketched for the purpose of this video, and I'll be drawing him with a variety of different browns and grays. I'm kind of going for a more wild look with this one. In terms of drawing white fur, I think I'll dedicate a separate video to that because it's a little bit of a different technique. And yeah, I think that the colored fur will just be a little bit more easy to understand at first glance. For this video, if you guys are learning or if you guys want to learn how to draw animal fur, we of course need pencil crayons. So pencil crayons I always use for the fur. It's just easier to get all of the details because fur can be very fine. So you want to work with something that you can sharpen, that you can get really into the details with, and I think pencil crayons really work well for that purpose. For the actual brand, I am using the Faber-Castell Polychromos pencil crayons. These are the pencil crayons I've always used. I think they work wonderfully. You can really get good results using the Faber-Castell Polychromos. So for usually the brown colors that I use in terms of drawing a animal with brown fur, I use a variety of browns, but I actually end up using the same browns over and over again. You need to have sort of light colored, so for your highlights, and you also need to have your dark colors for the shadows, and you also need to have sort of medium colors in between, as well as unique colors that the fur might have. So let's kind of break it down here. So for the medium color tone, that will be pretty much drawn all across the rabbit's head, I will be using the raw umber. So this is a pretty stereotypical color that I use for a variety of different animals. It's kind of like a mix or in between beigey brown color, and it works really well just to get kind of make the blend happen throughout the entire fur. So this is my medium color. For the kind of special color, in this case with the reference photo that I'm using, the rabbit does have a little bit of a burnt orange into his fur, especially around the mouth. So for this, I usually use the burnt ochre. And this is also a highlighter kind of color, but it could also be used as a medium tone. So these two I'll be using for medium. In terms of the shadow of the fur, I'll be using 3 different types here. We have the very first, which is what I use quite regularly, is the burnt umber, and this is a darker kind of shade of the raw umber. So this is the burnt umber. And typically the shadows, the pencil crayons for the shadows, are not used throughout the entire fur. You can, depends on the animal, but usually I focus these sort of like shadowy colors in certain areas of the fur. Another one here, we've got the burnt sienna. So this is also going to be used kind of like a shadow version of the burnt ochre here. And of course we have the gray. So I use a lot of warm grays, especially when drawing animal fur. I think warm gray gives best results compared to cool gray. So I use warm gray number 5 for the shadowy areas of the fur. And for sort of like the highlight areas, if there's kind of like white fur around his mouth, for example, I'll be using a variety of different grays here. So of course we've got all of the warm grays. We've got warm gray number 1, warm gray number 2, and warm gray number 3. So all of these I may or may not use. It depends on the actual reference photo. So here we go. We've divided it up. We've got our highlights, we've got our medium colors here, and then we've got our shadows. So another thing you guys will definitely need is a sharpener. So when you're drawing animal fur, it's very important that you keep your pencils very sharpened. You don't want to draw with dull pencils. The reason why is because we want to keep our lines very straight, very precise, and yeah, it's just much easier to get the details with sharpened pencils. So I use this pencil sharpener. It's called Staedtler. It's the Staedtler brand. I think that any sharpener will do really, but you want to get something that I think honestly you want to pay a little bit more to get something that's more of a professional sharpener, so you don't have to worry about, I don't know, having dull pencils. So this one works really good. And of course, in terms of the actual sketch itself, I do use the Prismacolor Kohl Erase pencil. So you'll see the light blue sketch that I've done. And I think I just work this way because I could kind of erase it easier. I won't have dark gray lead pencil in the way. It's just of a lighter tone in general, and you need to have your eraser to erase sort of the guidelines as well. So before we get started with the actual drawing, I would recommend searching online, getting a reference photo, draw your pet, draw something that sort of an animal that means a lot to you, and start off from there. So get a photo. And basically, I think the very first thing you need to do in terms of getting prepared to draw the fur is to really study the reference photo. Check to see which direction the fur goes. I think this is one of the first advices or pieces of advice that I will give you is study the direction of the fur. So some animals have short fur, some animals have long fur. So you really have to kind of pay attention to see sort of like the direction, what is the movement of the fur, which direction that does it go in. I typically start from the nose up to the forehead. So you'll see that the fur is going upwards to the top of his head. Around its sort of like cheek area, the fur kind of starts to curve around his mouth. So I really have to pay attention to make sure that I get this movement. So I'm not just drawing fur in one direction. You guys want to draw fur with the motion or the movement of the actual animals. Sort of the second tip here, depending on the type of animal you're drawing as well as the type of breed, animals may have long hair or they may have short hair. So of course you want to kind of shorten or lengthen your pencil strokes depending on the type of fur that the animal has. In this case, I think that the rabbit has sort of a short hair, so it's actually not that bad. I'm going to keep my strokes very short, very simple, not too long, and that's basically all you have to do. Keep it short and you just have to layer. So really study the movement of the fur and then study the length of the fur as well. Okay, so the first thing that I do with my photo, so once I want to start drawing the actual animal, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sketch it out. And with my Prismacolor blue, light blue Cool Erase pencil, and I just kind of sketch out the general shape. I do also sketch out a little bit of the pattern on where I want the fur to go. Now, before I get started on the actual coloring, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to just gently erase some of these lines within the actual head because I'm going to replace it with pencil crayon. So I'm going to show you what that means. We're going to do the ears here as well, because we don't actually want the blue to be part of his fur, right? So we just want to erase all of that. So now what I do is I take my lightest warm gray, so this is warm gray number 1, and I'm just going to sharpen it so that it's extra sharp. Now that it's actually sharpened, what I do is I take this and just kind of gently sketch around where I kind of like the pattern of the fur, where I want to differentiate between some of the fur colors. So a lot of this is going to be around the mouth and the cheek area, because there's a lot of different fur colors happening between the like sort of white fur and the dark brown fur. So we're just going to gently sketch sort of like the line or the pattern. I also want to erase some of the guidelines below his mouth. So when I'm sketching, I'm just drawing very lightly, very, very lightly, just drawing the general area of the actual fur. Quick strokes, not too hard. Do not press too hard at this point. Just sketch very, very lightly. Same goes on this side of the mouth. And you don't have to do too much, like, don't focus on long strokes, don't focus on getting it right. This is just to kind of sketch the general area of where the fur will go. Around his mouth too, there's sort of like an interesting pattern. So we want to sketch, of course, in the direction of the fur as well. So kind of like the cheek, we'll just go downwards like that. Just do a curve. And then curve it upwards as well. So again, we're just differentiating between the different shades, where the shades will go, where the pattern of the actual fur, how it works. Around the nose also, there's quite a difference. There's some white fur around the nostrils, so we're just going to try to sketch that outline right now. And at this stage, it's just important to kind of keep the sort of, you can start with the texture of the fur as well. So you can just try to give a texture. Don't actually do like a straight line. This is all going to turn into like a fur texture. So you want to already start doing that sort of fur texture from the very beginning. As for the ears, you can already start doing it for the ears as well. For the inside of the ears, it's actually going to be much easier because the inside of the ears usually has quite long hair, and that's actually a pretty true fact for a lot of animals. So in this case, instead of doing short kind of strokes like we've been doing around the face, we can just already start to extend the fur. So here we're just going to outline the inner ear area, and you can just do quick sort of strokes here. You can also do it quite long. Always do remember to erase the guidelines, of course. You don't want to have blue in the fur unless you're drawing like a blue rabbit, then by all means, but in this case we just want to keep it clean. Okay, so this is sort of the general approach. I definitely outline a lot of the areas where we're going to have the color come in. So just to kind of establish the pattern of the fur. And this is what I typically do. And when I'm drawing, I typically start with a section first. So we're going to start with the head in this case, and then we'd move down to the body afterwards. And that's just your way of drawing. It's totally up to you how you want to approach this. But that's the way that I do. I focus on one area first rather than many areas at once. It's just a little bit easier. Okay, so the next step that I do is I go for the we're going to go with the raw umber. This is my medium color. So I take my medium color, my medium shade, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start kind of filling in some of these sections here. Okay, so when I'm drawing rabbits, I typically start with the mouth area and I make my way around. So I have to curve with the fur, and then this direction I will start to make my way up the actual head. So we're going to start here and we're going to curve around. So here around the lips, we're going to start off with the medium color, and the way that I do it is I just kind of add quick, short strokes. Again, you want to kind of, put some variety in your strokes. You don't want to have it all in one direction. You want to curve with the fur, and also when you're actually drawing in one specific direction, you can do some kind of like rebellious fur. I'm trying to find a way to kind of like say this properly, but you can do the fur in different directions as well. This will of course give it a little bit more of a realistic look because the fur is not always like super neatly brushed. But yeah, just remember to do one direction, just remember to do sort of like follow the fur movement. So as I am sketching upwards here, I will gently start to curve my fur strokes like that. And we're just gonna curve all the way up and bring it back down to the nose, the top of the nose, like that. So here we're sketching sort of the nostril area of the animal, and we're just gonna keep extending this outwards. At this stage, you also wanna just draw lightly. You don't want to draw too hard, so much of the hardness will come later on. Right now we're just establishing sort of the medium color that's in the actual fur, the medium tone. You don't want to draw too hard, so just draw light pencil strokes. In this case we're drawing short pencil strokes. Okay, so now that we've got this sort of like area done, I can already start kind of layering some of the colors in. So yeah, again, very important to note just to consider the movement of the fur. So in the actual like center of his head here, the fur moves a lot in different directions. So you just kind of want to mimic that with your strokes. So here it might move in this direction and then it might curve back upwards this way. That's actually what is a little bit what's going on with the reference photo. So you just want to kind of adjust the curvature of your pencil as you proceed up towards the face. Now on this side of his face, it is also brown. However, it is sort of gray, mostly a light brown and a gray. So what I do is I will actually kind of sketch the outline here on his face, and then we would add some of the darker shades afterwards, and then we're gonna mix it or blend it together with the actual gray. So in this case, again, follow the movement of the fur. I'm drawing downwards. And his fur is a little bit longer on the side of his cheeks, so we can actually kind of give the impression already that the fur is, sticking out. We want to kind of draw downwards. We don't want to add too much of this color because it's not actually a dominant color on this side of his fur, but it is still there, so we're just going to add a little bit of color. Okay, so now that you've set the base with your medium color, what you want to do is you want to start adding a little bit more oomph to that. So this is where the layering happens. So we have a medium color. You can start adding more color with the medium dark shade. Something I forgot to introduce at the beginning also was this color here. This is the nougat color. In comparison, it's a little bit, it's kind of a different tone of the brown, but it is in between the medium. So here we have sort of the difference in the different tones here. So I'm going to be using this color, the nougat color, for sort of the medium dark shade. We're going to sharpen this and we're going to just start adding more pencil strokes on top. So here you can just, again, depending on the areas of the reference photo, you can just already start to sketch over top again. So just light, quick pencil strokes. You want to go with the same movement, the same sort of direction as the fur that you just drew with your medium color. So we're going to darken some of these areas here. So you can see already that the sort of layering is starting to happen. Around his nose here, we want to add some orange. So we've got that special color that's unique to this animal, and this is the burnt ochre, and we're just going to add that special color within the actual lip or cheek area here. Here I'm going to actually press a little bit stronger than the past strokes that I've been doing, because we really want to make this color predominant in his cheek area. So we're just gonna go with the flow and then press a little bit harder. Okay, so this general area here, I will work afterwards when I start to incorporate some of the grays into the actual fur. I just like to keep adding some of the darker shades. So now we're going to use our burnt umber color, which is the darkest shade that we have, and we're going to start adding some of the darkness that appears on the top of his head. So here you want to not do it so, like, not go crazy with this color. You just want to do sort of like dark undertones in some of the shading. So this is where you really want to look at your actual reference photo to see where the dark shades in the fur stand out the most, and you want to start from there. So you want to use this sparingly, and you want to kind of use it where only the shadows are, so not throughout the entire fur like what we did for the medium colors. So this is very important because you can easily kind of mess up your drawing if it's too much of a dark shade. And what's great about this is actually you can just go back and fix it afterwards. If you have any issues, if you think that there's a lot of dark missing, you can just go back and add it. But for this one, we're just going to use it sparingly. More so at the top of his head is where the dark shades are, and also on the side of his cheek here. And the darkness is actually used quite a bit to even put more emphasis on the movement of the fur. So this is where you want to kind of create the illusion that the fur is actually curving, or there's movement to the fur. And you would use the dark sort of pencil crayon to really achieve that as well. So when you're noticing here, like we've added the darker shades at this point, what I'm noticing now, there's still a lot of white coming through from the paper. And what you want to do in this case is just go back with your medium color, so my raw umber, and fill in some of these spaces again. So of course you got to make sure that your pencil is very, very sharp in this case, but you just want to go back and kind of fill in some of that white space. Not sketching generally, it's more so just doing the same pencil strokes you've been doing this whole time. You just want to kind of eliminate that white color popping through. And the white is not necessarily a bad thing because there is a bit of white that's coming through from the actual photo, or through from the actual fur. So you just want to kind of, in the darkest areas especially, kind of eliminate that white. And part of this, like going back with the actual medium color, at this point you can also go back with your warm gray color. So these are going to be the shadows for the white fur around the this area here and the mouth. So I'm using the warm gray number 2, which is a step up from the warm gray number 1 that I used to just simply outlined the sort of patterns. So here we're going to use it a lot for the side, the cheek. And here you just want to kind of go with the movement of the fur as well. So we're just going to sketch over the lines we've already done. Here we want to also go with movement of the fur and just extend the sort of cheek outwards to meet the side cheek here. Basically what I like to do is where the sort of colored fur meets the white area, like the whiter area of the fur, I like to take my gray, my worm gray colors, and just kind of make, or kind of provide like a sort of blend with the color area. I will add sort of like the dark warm gray around the color to kind of just blend it in more smoothly with the white area of the actual rabbit's fur. So this is especially noticeable around the eyes. So we can just further extend sort of the fur here with the gray. And you can also add streaks of gray also within the actual fur to kind of like further emphasize the blend. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and take my dark gray, my warm gray number 5, and we're going to just outline the eye and the nose area so we can start filling in this with color. We're not going to do anything too crazy with this. We're just going to add sort of the outline to just kind of shape up the nose area and the eyeball. The warm gray number 5, I also use it as an extra shadow. So I will use the color to further shade some of the areas, like around the lip, for example. And then I will go back into the actual fur and add the warm gray number 5 to certain areas that I want to just darken up the fur. But for now, we're just going to stick to the eyeball. And usually for the eye, I also use the black color, so the black pencil crayon. And basically for the rest of the fur, I will just keep adding more layers and layers, building sort of the color and the shape and movement of the fur. So here I'm just kind of filling in some of the cheeks a little bit more in detail. We can also add this color in the actual fur area here. We of course want to make this area more prominent, so we will add the orange, the ochre color again. This time I'm pressing really, really hard. So for the finer details, I will end up pressing harder than I would normally draw, just to kind of get the white of the paper kind of erased. We don't want to have that popping in through these areas here. Like that. So you can see it's starting to come together a lot. We want to also focus on the mouth. So the mouth is white fur, but there's also, like, to get the shadows right, you want to start adding some of the warm gray colors in there as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to take sort of like the shape, the direction of the mouth here, and we're going to extend kind of the shape with the gray. And here we're going to mimic the fur pattern. So we want to just kind of darken the fur shape under his chin a little bit more. We don't want to fill in the entire space with this color. This is more so just like blending the edges of where the color and the white meets. So you just want to kind of blend that together with the warm gray. Under his mouth, of course, there's going to be a little bit more details in terms of the dark shadows. So we're just going to extend the mouth shape with the warm gray downwards. And here actually it's going to be much darker. So we're just going to kind of sketch in some of the space with the dark, or with the warm gray. He has a little mouth, so we can open up his mouth. I just sketched kind of like the mouth area here, and we can further extend with the warm gray number 5, sort of blending the mouth with the fur, kind of like that. And basically, you just keep adding layers on top of layers. So you can continue this technique. You can add gray in here into the actual fur as well. And sometimes at the very end, what I do also like to do is add, with my white pencil crayon, I will go back, and if the fur is dark enough, then you can actually see the white pencil crayon. In this case, you might not see it as well, but you can just go back and add some streaks of the white fur where most of the highlights are located. You can also add some highlights to the eyes as well, more or less. But yeah, this is the general technique that I use to draw fur. I only drew one side of his face. Of course, you can keep adding more detail, but yeah, that's generally the approach that I take for drawing fur. So I hope you guys learned a lot with this video. This is basically my approach to drawing hair. I hope that the techniques were explained fine. This is kind of like my first video tutorial in terms of a pretty intense explanation. Kind of explaining a technique is a little bit difficult, so I hope that this actually came out across okay. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you like what you see, please leave me a comment below. Let me know what you guys want to learn next. I can definitely do a video on that. And yeah, give me a big subscribe if you guys want to support me, and I wish you guys a fantastic day. Thank you guys all for watching, and stay awesome, guys. Stay awesome, keep drawing, keep being awesome.